Also, around that time, a preacher from England named Thomas Thornwood published the book The Jews in America and the Probabilities of the Natives Being Jews. But the most surprising thing of all this was what the English philosopher William Penn, who founded Pennsylvania, declared at the time. There is one of the frequent immersions in rivers or springs. It corresponds to the Jewish concept mikveh. Do not touch a dead person. It corresponds to a Jewish concept of tumah, impurity. Do not drink blood. Observing certain days of fasting, which corresponds to the Jewish concept of ta'anit. Widows of indigenous people who did not have children had no right to remarry without the express consent of their brother-in-law, which corresponds to the Jewish concept of halitza. And you could actually see that in Numbers. Um, it's the same thing. So they were following the same laws. Now, indigenous men were required to marry the widows of their brothers who had not had children, which corresponds to the Jewish concept ibum. Salakia. The obligation to offer the first fruits of their harvest to their God, depositing them under trees on the summit of high mountains. This corresponds to the Jewish concept Bikurim, an offering of the first fruits of Shavuot. They had temples and a sacred object that they carried with them on war campaigns, which corresponds to the Jewish concept of Urim B'Tamim. Pectoral of the Kohen Gadol. For the indigenous people, the souls of the dead met with those of their ancestors in their ancestral camp. This corresponds with the Jewish concept Gan Eden. Indigenous priests had to wear white skins on major solemnities. This corresponds
Solemnities, which are feasting.
solemnities. Khan. So this corresponds with the Jewish concept of the clothes of the Kohen Gadol, high priest. Ceremonies were held on the days of the new moon, which corresponds with the concept Rosh Hashanah. According to the indigenous beliefs, suicides would not have access to the kingdom of the parents. Indigenous women were required to live in separate tents during periods considered impure during menstruation and and for 3 months following childbirth. This corresponds to the Jewish concept nida, the unclean women.